Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the first exciting episode of Break Apart the Baddie, the show where we take the villains from movies, TV, video games, anywhere where just really compelling villains exist, and we break them apart and look at them to figure out why it is these villains are so bad, and we're so happy when the heroes triumph over them, or we're so upset when they get away, depending on the movie. Um, the entire purpose of this is so that we can use these traits and motivating factors to create our own really compelling villains for our own games that we run. Um, so, a little background on this whole series. As an actor, I played almost exclusively villains for years, and I got really good at it. And one thing that I found from even really people that pride themselves in their ability to kind of dissect film or TV and stuff like that is a lot of people get villains wrong, um, and when they get them wrong, and then try to create their own villains, or even just to talk about the villains that they create and the villains that they describe aren't that compelling. They're not that interesting. They don't really inspire a need to defeat them as much as just dislike them. And that's not a defining feature of a villain. A real villain should make you want to stop them, should make you see them doing something and know that you or your character has to do something to intervene. What they shouldn't be is just cesspools of darkness. They should be real. They should be believable. And that's something I see people get wrong constantly. It leads to really boring, pointless games. So today, we're going to talk about a villain I've seen mischaracterized over and over again, but it's gotten a lot worse recently due to the political climate. And I just want to kind of go into the character himself, because I think this is one of the great Disney villains. He is a horrible, horrendous person. You are rooting for him to lose from the very beginning of the movie. And at the end of the movie, when he does get his comeuppance, despite the fact that it's an extremely dark and terrifying scene, you're happy. And that's because the villain itself is written so well. It's a believable villain. I have met people like this villain, not quite to the extreme, which is a very common theme of big baddies in any kind of storytelling, is they take a real kind of person, a bad person, and they amplify him to a degree where there's no choice but to try and stop them. So without beating around the bush too much longer, the character I want to talk about is Judge Claude Frollo from the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Now, I do want to preface this with a trigger warning, and this is not the trigger warnings that upset me, where it's just like, oh, well, I'm going to talk about something that might make you uncomfortable. No, these are actual PTSD triggers that if you do struggle with PTSD, or you've had trauma in your life before, some of the subjects we're going to talk about here could bring up some very bad memories, or trigger panic attacks and things like that. So going forward, we are going to be talking about sex, sexual assault, rape, all those kind of really bad things, because they are part of what makes the character just so evil. So knowing that, if that's not a subject you can deal with, that is perfectly fine. Um, Feel free to skip this episode and could come back for the next one. So, Frollo is a really well written villain for a number of reasons. First of all, everything he does is motivated by his own belief system. And this is something that I see a lot of people that just do a casual study of Frollo completely throw out the door. They just look at him and go, oh, he's an evil person, and he wants to do bad things to Esmeralda. And because he has power, he can force her to do that. That's not his character at all. And to kind of reduce him to this almost like mindless sexual deviant really doesn't make him that compelling of a character. It just makes him bad, which is fine. But at that point, you could just as easily have a monster for frothing at the mouth, just going around eating people alive, and it will have the same effect on the characters. It's a bad thing that does bad things for no reason. And that's not what Frollo is, and it makes for a really boring character. Frollo himself is an extremely devoted person. A lot of his character traits in another instance would be considered good. He's very pious. He's very devoted. He actually has an extremely large amount of self-control as well, and that's one of the things that leads to his downfall. He's also a very charismatic person. He has natural leadership qualities. All of these things get him to the position where he is. Now, the bad aspects of it, of all these good traits, are amplified to 11 and perverted. And that's what makes him so compelling, is he has all these good traits that have just been twisted just enough so that they are no longer good at all. His devotion has changed him from someone that believes in a set of rules and laws to a person that imposes his interpretation of these rules and laws onto other people. And that interpretation can change whenever, because as humans, our interpretation of the things will change. But it doesn't matter to him that his interpretation is changed, just that he can impose that interpretation on other people. He's extremely pious, but that piety has changed from a something that makes him devote himself to being holy into something that he uses to show how much better he is than everyone else. And it actually turns him into almost a sociopath, psychopath mentality, where he is a higher being than everyone else around him. And we'll talk about kind of the defining aspects of the movie are these two songs that he sings that really exemplify this. But because he changes from piety of, trying to be holy to I am so pious that I am better than everyone, to the point where lesser people don't actually matter, and I can treat them however I want because I am a divine servant of God. And that's what changes him from a character with a lot of good qualities into an extremely evil, dangerous person that we want to see fail. And that's the kind of villains you want to have. The idea of a villain that has good qualities that turn them that get amplified to such a degree that it turns them bad is a very common thing for well-written villains. Shakespeare is actually very good at creating villains that would have this one defining flaw, their cardinal sin that would kind of be their downfall, whether it was pride or things like that. It was this one aspect where pride in itself, pride in yourself, pride in your community, is not a bad thing. It's when it's amplified to the point where your pride makes you better than everyone else, that it becomes bad, that it becomes evil. And this is something that happens to real people. We have all met people with the various aspects of them where they believe something so fervently that their devotion to it changes them and makes them take actions that they really shouldn't. The current political climate now, we see constantly people claiming to believe a certain set of beliefs and rules, and then breaking all of those to attack people that don't agree with them. We see this constantly everywhere, from politics to video games, fandoms. So that's why Frollo is such a great villain, and the reason people want him to lose is he's believable, he's realistic to a point, but he's inflated past realism to the degree of epic big bad guy. Someone that, if they continue with their power, it's not just going to annoy people or hurt people. His ability to gain power can cause people to die, and that's what happens in the movie. So let's start talking about the specifics of what makes Frollo such a well-written evil character. The two songs that he have to really quick get my lyrics again. The two songs that he sings in the movie is he gives the intro to Out There, which is a solo by Quasimodo, which is really an amazing song. But a lot of people forget the first part of Out There, and the introduction to it is sung by Frollo, and then eventually it's a duet between Frollo and Quasimodo, and it really shows the mindset of Frollo as it pertains not only to Quasimodo but to the world as a whole. Because this is short, I'm actually going to sing it because it's a very beautiful piece, and I don't stutter when I sing. Forgive me if it's not perfect. I'm going to take a drink real quick. It starts off with Frollo talking with Quasimodo, and Quasimodo had said festival, and Frollo thought that meant that he was considering going out of the bell tower, where Frollo had effectively imprisoned him through emotional and verbal abuse. So he goes into this song that goes like this. The world is cruel, the world is wicked. It's I alone whom you can trust in this whole city. I am your only friend. I who keep you, teach you, feed you, dress you. I who look upon you without fear. How can I protect you, boy, unless you always stay in here, away in here? Remember what I taught you, Quasimodo. You are deformed, and you are ugly, And these are crimes which the world shows little pity. You do not comprehend. Out there they'll revile you as a monster. Out there they will hate and scorn and jeer. Why invite their calumny and consternation? Stay in here, be faithful to me, grateful to me. Do as I say, obey and stay in here. And then it goes into Quasimodo's part, which is amazing, one of my favorite songs. But when you look at what he talks about here, he defines the world as cruel and wicked, and he is the only person that Quasimodo can trust in the whole city. Now, this is has two really defining characteristics of Frollo. First, this is how he sees the world. The world is cruel, wicked. You can't trust people. And this is based in his very devout faith. I myself, being a Christian, I'm very familiar with the Bible. And if you take certain pieces out of the Bible out of context, it's a really negative outlook on the world. Romans itself is a letter from Paul to the remarkably enough, Romans. And throughout the book, he talks about a lot of different things. But one of the verses that I remember and fits into Frollo's worldview really well is, "For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God." What that means and what Paul meant it to mean, depending on who you want to ask, my interpretation is followed up by another verse in the same book where it says, "For by grace we are saved through faith, not by works, so that none may boast." Those two verses taken together kind of show the idea that Paul is saying nobody in this world is good enough to get into heaven. We have all screwed up. Think of the most pious, holy person you know. They have screwed up so bad that they deserve to go to hell. All humanity has. But we have been saved by grace, by the grace of God, through our faith, not through our works. Because if we were saved by our works, then people could boast about it. Look how much holier I am than you. I tithe more than you do. I give more of myself to the church than you do. I come to confession more than you do. All of these things are works. All of these things are little notes you can take showing how much better you are than other people. Frollo is focused on that first part, that first verse. Everyone is sinful except for him, because he has done so much and he has given up so much that he is holier than everyone else. And so he is not sinful. He is not he's the only person in the entire city that Quasimodo can trust. Everyone else is horrible. This feeds into that, psychopathic, sociopathic mentality of I am a higher being and everyone else is a little lesser beings. Because they are little lesser beings, I don't have to treat them the way I would want to be treated. I deserve to be treated better because I am better. And that's one of the defining things that makes Frollo so hateable. The idea of a person that believes themselves to be so good and so above everyone else that they can treat other people as lesser beings because they firmly believe that they are, that is an evil character. That is someone that everyone can rally behind and say they don't like. And you see this kind of character in a lot of different mediums. And the one thing that can kind of change that kind of character from a really good compelling character that we all want to see lose to a two-dimensional, annoying character that doesn't seem believable is why they believe that. And that's where the second half of this song really kind of explains how Frollo thinks and why he thinks he's so much better than everyone else. I who keep you, teach you, feed you. I who keep you, teach you, feed you, dress you. I who look upon you without fear. Look at all the things that I do. No one else would do this because they're lesser beings. But because I am a greater being, I do all of these things and I can look upon you without fear. This is his justification. He's not better simply because he was born better. He's not better simply because he's some sort of ascended being or something like that. He's better because he's worked his ass off to be better. And because of all of the things he has done to make him a better person, he's allowed to look down on everyone else as a lesser, because everyone else could do the exact same thing he's doing, but they choose not to. So not only are they lesser beings, they choose to be lesser beings. And once you start looking the character like that, you can now see why he is such an evil person, but a believably evil person. This idea of a character that just goes around doing horrible things to people because I'm evil isn't believable. Villains are never the villains in their own story. They always see themselves as the hero. And one of the parts of the hero's journey is struggle to overcome something. And in Frollo's case, his struggle is to overcome the inherent sin and nature of humanity that he believes everybody has. Not only does he believe everybody has it, but he's beaten his. So he is someone superhuman. And this will feed into why he starts to become unhinged later in the show. Because Frollo has been a judge for a very long time. At the beginning of the movie, he kills or not Esmeralda, he kills Quasimodo's mother. There's a really great interaction between him and the Archdeacon. And the reason he takes Quasimodo is the Archdeacon basically accuses him of sinning. And again, with his mindset, I don't sin. I am above that because I've beaten it through all my hard work. He had no choice but to take care of this kid. He was terrified if he started sinning again, he would become like everybody else. And he can't be like everybody else. And then on top of that, there's the eternal damnation in hell that he believes will happen if he becomes like everybody else. So yeah, this first little fragment of a song is often overlooked when people are kind of studying Frollo, and they only focus on the really creepy sexualized stuff he does in the later part of the movie. So, and then the rest of this actually fits into his charisma and his ability to manipulate and influence people. As he sits there and he says, you're deformed, you're ugly, and these are crimes to which the world shows little pity. Even when he's controlling Quasimodo through insulting him, through belittling him, which is an actually very common form of emotional abuse. Anyone that's ever dealt with emotional abuse has had people to talk to them that way. Another reason why this villain feels so real is because he's using actual techniques that abusers use. They belittle you, they cut you off from the rest of the world, and they make you feel that you are alone. There's something drastically wrong with you, and they're the only person that won't punish you for that thing that's wrong, or will punish you less for that thing. And then it goes right back into his worldview, and these are crimes for which the world shows little pity. The world itself is not as enlightened as me. They're just gonna, think you're deformed and ugly. I, on the other hand, see that you're an actual human being, a lesser human being, because no one's as good as I am, but still, I'm better than them, and you can't let them do anything for you. So like I said, this really gives a good explanation of how Frollo kind of became the person that he is. And if you actually read the novel by Victor Hugo, Frollo is a slightly different person in the novel itself. He's actually an archdeacon instead of the judge. But still, the character is very similar, where he sees himself as above. He actually has a brother in the novel, and a lot of his motivation comes from not being able to save his brother, and it's a really unique thing. We're not talking about that version of Frollo, but it does kind of give credence to the idea of how he views himself. So the second song that I'm not going to sing because it's much longer and it's a little more rough on my voice, is called Hellfire. And everybody that examines this character, because again, in musicals, you break into song when your emotions are so strong that there's no other way to express yourself other than breaking into song. And Hellfire is that. But what everyone focuses on in Hellfire actually doesn't come until the very end of the song. They ignore just literally everything else in the song itself, just to kind of paint Frollo as this horny, dude bro that's trying to use his power to get himself laid. And that's not who Frollo is, and that's a really boring character anyway. But at the end of the song, he says, "Destroy Esmeralda and let her taste the fires of hell, or else let her be mine and mine alone." And everyone assumes that means, hey, he's trying to rape her. Which, if you just take that out of context, 100%, yep, that's what it is. And when you look at all the context, it's not that far off, but it's the motivation behind why he wants this, and his the thought process behind it, that changes him from a two-dimensional sex-obsessed character to a fully three-dimensional villain with normal human emotions and things like that have been perverted and changed by those good characteristics we talked about before that have been amplified to a dangerous level. So if we actually look at the whole song, something that people don't realize is the song doesn't start off with Beata Maria, you know I am a righteous man, of my virtue I am justly proud. That's not actually the intro to the song. However, the intro itself is in Latin, and it's sung very quietly by a choir. And because of that, it's kind of like Duel of the Fates, where there's a choir singing, but the choir just becomes instruments. And the words that they're saying don't actually mean anything. And so a lot of people miss the fact that the intro is actually, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, but it's important to talk about it. It's Confitero de Deo omnipotenti, Beata Mariae semper Virgini, Beato Michele Arcangelo, Sanctis Apostolis Omnibus Sanctis. Now, that was really bad Latin. I haven't pronounced Latin since college, my first time where we used to sing in it. But what that is actually what's called the Confiteor, which is a Catholic prayer said towards the beginning of Mass. And it's the title is loosely translated to I confess or I acknowledge. It's a confession. The actual translations of the Latin there is that first line, Confiteor Deo Omnipotenti, is I confess to God Almighty. The next part, Beata Mariae Semper Virgini, is to the Blessed Mary, ever Virgin, which a lot of people don't understand why in the Catholic faith why the Virgin Mary is so important, and that's because virginity is equated to purity, and again, for all of sin and fall short of God, no one is pure, but Mary was considered pure when she had Jesus. So the fact that they always refer to her as the Virgin Mary and make this big deal about virginity is not because they think virginity is that big a deal, or they have a lot of focus on the hymen or anything like that. It's the idea that Mary was this pure individual, and virginity equals purity in that aspect. That's why this is so important. So second line is saying that he's first one confessing to God, second one confessing to Mary, who is pure. The third one, Beato Michele Arcangelo, is to the blessed Archangel Michael. In the Bible, there's not a whole lot of named angels. And Michael is Michael is one of the few named archangels. Without getting into too much detail about the hierarchy of angels and everything like that, archangels are the big guys. They're really important. Michael, if I remember correctly, I'm looking it up really quick so I don't say the wrong thing. Yeah, he's been portrayed a lot of different ways by the different interpretations, but the general kind of accepted idea of Michael nowadays is he's a protector and the leader of the armies of God against the forces of evil. So it's important that this confession is also a convention to God, to Mary, and then to Michael, who is the guy in charge of fighting evil for the angels. And then the last thing, Sanctus, I'm not going to try that again, but that's to all the holy apostles and to all the saints. Again, the leaders of the church itself is the apostles, the people that started the church, and the saints are all people that were kind of anointed by God, and because of that, they're worshipped in the same way in the Catholic faith as really as the apostles and other things like that. So this is a big deal. That it starts off as I confess to God, to Mary, to Michael the Archangel, and to all the apostles and saints. This isn't Frollo sitting there going, damn, it sucks that there's this super hot chick and I can't bone her. This is Frollo for the first time in a very long time, possibly the first time in his life. He is feeling sexual desire for a woman that he can't control. I cannot speak for women or really anyone that's not me, but very strong desire for another person can make you do stupid things. When I was younger, I did stupid things in order because I had very strong desires towards specific people. So having dealt most of his life being able, again, we've already talked about how he is such a pure being and a better person because all of his desires and things like that are completely human and normal. He has such strong willpower and such an ability to deny himself of these desires that's what makes him a better person. However, now he's feeling things he's not supposed to feel because in his religion, the only person you are ever supposed to feel those things for is your wife. And even then, you're not supposed to feel lust for her. You are allowed to feel desire for your wife because that's a blessed and holy union. But you're not allowed to feel lust, which is different. Well, one day maybe I'll do a video on religion to talk about the difference between desire and lust. But for right now, lust bad, desire good in certain instances. So now he basically is having not just a crisis of faith, he's having a crisis of personality, of his very existence. Again, in his mind, he is a higher being. He's better than everyone else around him, and his justification for why he is better is he is so strong in his faith and his willpower that he doesn't even feel the corrupt, base emotions that everyone else feels. And you see this in the actual song itself, the Beata Maria. Again, I confess to Maria. You know I am a righteous man. Of my virtue, I am justly proud. He's sitting there. I'm a righteous man, and I'm proud of it. I am so good that I'm allowed to be proud of it. Pride, being one of the 7 deadly sins, is not something you should ever be proud of, to use a phrase. However, he is so pure that he is justified in being proud of it because he is unique. That's what makes him better than everyone else. You go the next verse. Beata Maria, you know I'm so much purer than the common, vulgar, weak, licentious crowd. So again, he's going into I am so much better, and they are so much worse. Anyone else, this would make perfect sense, and they deserve to die for it because they are lesser beings that are not holding themselves in check like I do. Then we get to the next one. Then tell me, Maria, no longer are we Beata Maria. Now it's tell me, Maria. I'm going to command the Holy Mother of God to tell me why I see her dancing there, why her smoldering eyes still scorch my soul. Why do I keep remembering her? Why does my imagination keep making me focus on aspects of her I shouldn't? Not only is she a lesser being because she's not him, she is an even more lesser being because she's a gypsy. Again, in his hierarchy, you have him, you have the people that work for him, which are a little bit better because they have discipline. They're trying to fight their urges. Then you have the regular populace who are scum. Then you have gypsies, who don't deserve to live. That's why killing Quasimodo's mother had no effect on him, because she wasn't even human. She was a lesser being. And again, that's where a character can go from just a bad person to a evil person. When they can consider a certain class of person, or a group of people, or all people, depending on how you want to write them, as subhuman, as not deserving life, that is a dangerous thing. That's the kind of person you have to stop. And that's the kind of person Frollo is. Gypsies are, according to him, gypsies are subhuman. That's why he's allowed to kill them. In this same way that you crush a cockroach. And he makes this a reference in the movie when he's talking to Phoebus and telling him he wants to find the Court of Miracles. He compares them to insects. He is asking, basically demanding of Maria, the person, the holy figure that he's praying to, why this is happening. It's not supposed to happen to him. He's a higher being. And he goes, I feel her, I see her. The sun caught in her raven hair is blazing in me out of all control. I can't handle this. I can't. I shouldn't be feeling these things. I shouldn't be looking at her that way. I shouldn't be thinking these thoughts. I am a better person than this. Why are you doing this to me? Again, it's not his fault. And we'll see this a little bit further in the song. It's not his fault this is happening. This is not his failure. He is a higher being. Someone more powerful than him is causing him to feel these things that he's not supposed to feel. Again, this devotion to a set of ideals has become so incredibly ingrained in him that he thinks he's incapable of doing things outside of this devotion. And because of that, it has to be someone else. Again, a very common trait of abusers in general is when bad things happen, even when they do bad things, it's not their fault. They are a higher being. Someone else made them do it. And that's what he's talking about here. The chorus itself, like fire, hellfire, this fire in my skin, this burning desire is turning me to sin. And that is where he is confessing. He is, up until this point, he hasn't actually admitted that he is sinning, that he is having these impure thoughts he shouldn't be having. So this song is him confessing and trying to deal with it. The second verse shows how he deals with it. It's not my fault. I'm not to blame. It is this gypsy girl, this witch who sent this flame. She did it. She cast some sort of spell on me. Something in her has corrupted me beyond my control. I'm still a higher being. She's just cheating. Next, it's not my fault if in God's plan he made the devil so much stronger than a man. It's not my fault. I am already this higher being. I'm already doing everything. It's not my fault that the devil's stronger than me, a higher being. So I'm not actually sitting here. And this is where you start to see that justification that makes him so evil, is he can justify his negative actions, even the ones that go against that set of rules that he devotes himself to. He finds ways to justify what he's doing within those rules by going, this is my fault. God did this. And if God did it, it can't be a sin. God made it so that Satan was more powerful than I am. And excuse me. And that means it's not my fault. I'm still a higher being. And then it goes with, protect me, Maria. Don't let this siren cast her spell. Don't let her fire sear my flesh and bone. Now he's worried about going to hell because he's no longer a higher being. He's just like everyone else. Everyone else that's going to hell. So please don't let me go to hell. It's not my fault. I don't want to go to hell. Destroy Esmeralda and let her taste the fires of hell, or else let her be mine and mine alone. That's again where you get this idea of, oh, he's just trying to bone her. No. Again, in his mind, the idea of having these the thoughts about a woman he's not married to is sinful. However, if he was married to her, then it's not sinful anymore. Now, again, in the original book, he's an archdeacon. He's actually not allowed to get married. And that kind of bleeds over into this. This idea of or else let her be mine and mine alone. This idea of, well, wait a minute. If I'm the only person she's with, we're basically married then. I may not be allowed to be married, but if she's only with me and I'm only with her, we're basically married. Then it's not a sin. I'm still a higher being. Score one for me. Sorry if that just killed anyone's ears. I forgot. My mic is literally there. But again, this is him confessing his sin, which he hadn't done before, and coming up with a plan to fix it. Either Esmeralda dies, no more temptation, nothing for him to think about anymore. She's gone, or she becomes mine, and then it's okay for me to think about her that way because God put her here for me to use in that way. Again, really messed up mindset. It's what makes him such a great villain. But he's not this, I got a boner. No, he's struggling with his inability to follow the code that he's devoted himself to. And so now he's doing these crazy mental gymnastics to justify why he's feeling this way and how he can still be a higher being and better than literally everybody else in this city. And it has to be that she's been put here specifically to test him, and this is how he's going to beat the test. Either he kills her, or she becomes his. Either way, it's no longer a sin. And he came up with this solution himself, something no one else could have done, still a higher being. And then the end of it is Hellfire to the Darkfire. Now, Gypsy, it's your turn. Choose me or your pyre. Be mine or you will burn. Again, this idea of she has to be stopped. What she's doing is wrong because she's corrupting me and I'm a higher being. So she has to choose between me, because if she chooses me, it's not a sin anymore. Despite the fact it's a choice between him and death, he doesn't see that way. She chooses me, I choose her. It's basically marriage in his mind. And if she doesn't, we burn her. She dies. No more problem. And he ends it with, God have mercy on her. God have mercy on me. But she will be mine or she will burn. Again, at the end of this, he's confessed. He's demanded an answer why it's happened. He's come up with an answer. It's not my fault. It's her fault. It's the devil's fault. It is the corrupt world's fault. And he came up with a solution. It may be their fault, but I can solve this super easy. She will either be mine, which is okay, because then we're basically married. Whether he can get married or not, as a judge, I theoretically believe he can get married. But again, the original novel, he was a deacon and couldn't get married. And I think that's where you kind of get this idea of why doesn't he just say, oh, you'll just marry me. But whatever. But she will be mine or she will burn. Either way, I fixed the problem. And that's the last part of this villain complex is when he is presented a problem that makes him doubt his own belief structure. He finds a way to solve that problem, and generally it's going to be through the things we've already discussed. He's a higher being. Because he's a higher being, he doesn't actually have to worry about other people. They're lesser beings. They don't really deserve like rights or considering them human. They're not me. And so his solution to this is, hey, I can get rid of her because she's not like a human. She's a gypsy. So I can either get rid of her, or I can get her to be with me. She'll belong to me effectively, because that's how he sees marriage. And then it's not bad for me to have these thoughts. And hey, I can actually, get with a lady. I haven't been able to do that before, and this will make it not sinful. This is the best of both worlds. And the only thing that happens is we lose, a less than human creature. And that's what makes Frollo such a compelling villain. It's not because, he just wants to boner. He is having a crisis of faith and identity, and what makes him a villain is how he chooses to solve it. Instead of looking inside himself like a hero character would, if they had a crisis of faith, they would look inside themselves and see what they could change to make themselves fit into their chosen faith, or they might just give up on their faith entirely and choose themselves over their faith. Not this evil character. He's devoted his life to this belief system, this faith. He's nothing without it. So his solution is to blame other people and use other people to fix his problem. He doesn't have to change. The rest of the world does. And that is a really compelling villain. So let's translate this to D&D or any other RPG world. Substituting Catholicism or any major religion in the real world into your game can have bad results. There's always the chance that you will offend someone by getting something wrong about a religion that they believe very strongly about. There's also the issue that religions are complex things, and the amount of study and things like that. Like for this character, for me, I had to do Bible study. I had to learn some Latin. All this stuff just to talk about he's a single character. To transpose an entire religion into your campaign requires a lot of work. And all of the religions of this world don't exist in a world where magic is a thing, if your campaign does have magic. So I generally tend to recommend, let's not bring a real religion into a game, or even like in pieces to a point. However, creating a character that has a devotion to a certain belief structure that makes him better than other people isn't hard. We have people like this that are completely non-religious, and yet their devotion to a set of ideals and beliefs makes them believe that they are better people than you are. We call them vegans, but it's a joke. Calm down, please. Vegans, don't kill me. However, I think if you've dealt with vegans in general, or and then this doesn't go just for vegans, but I've seen it. I've met more vegans like this than any other group. It could be vegetarians. It could be liberals or conservatives or people that like the color blue, you see this constantly where there's a set of rules. People decide to adhere to them. The more difficult it is to adhere to, the better it makes them compared to you. So in your game world, come up with some rules. And you can take, again, I don't recommend transposing it into entire religion but taking some stuff that tends to be fairly common with religions in general. The idea of there's quite a few religions where staying away from your own desires is considered a do thing and a good thing, like denying your own desires. So in your game world, have a group of people that believe, pick something, eating too much good tasting food is bad for you. And so this person fasts on a regular basis. And because they do that, it needs to be more than just one rule. But having them devote themselves to an ideology, and if you are using a pre-made world, to do like in the Forgotten Realms, the priests of Ilmater are called pain bearers. Like they have a really strict set of rules, and you can have this for literally any religion. As much as a lot of people will say that Christianity is a bad religion that does all these evil, it's not. When you look at the actual tenets of the faith, it's a good thing. But we have seen countless times where a good thing has been corrupted and perverted by someone that thinks they are above everyone else and turns into bad stuff. And that makes a great villain. So, again, going back to it, if you want to create a Frollo-like villain, the defining characteristics of Frollo are devotion to some sort of set of rules, be it rules of chivalry, religious order, eating habits, whatever. They have to be devoted to a set of rules, so much so that they believe that they are better than everyone else because of how well they devote themselves to these rules. They need to be in a position of power somehow, because the power is what corrupts, partially what corrupts them and gives them the ability to do bad things. If you have a random person walking around claiming to be, better than everyone else, they're not a villain. They're just a narcissist. And while we don't generally like people like that, they're not dangerous. As soon as you give them power, though, that becomes a different thing altogether. So devotion to a set of ideals somehow, give them a position of power where not only can they proclaim themselves better than everyone else, but also have the ability to enforce their own beliefs on other people and punish them when they can't hold up to those ideals. And three, there has to be an inciting incident that causes them to have a crisis of faith and go over the edge. At the beginning of the movie, yeah, he killed a gypsy by kicking her while he was on his horse. But that's not mass murder. When you see the end Frollo, he is nuts. He's completely lost touch with reality. He's trying to not only kill Esmeralda, he's trying to kill everyone who disagrees with him. Phoebus, Quasimodo, everybody. He goes on a rampage to the point where he starts attacking Notre Dame, which is the symbol of the religion that he says he devotes himself to. So And that inciting incident should happen after the campaign has started, or after the adventure where he's introduced has started in some way. The characters should observe something that causes him to question his face. If he's something like a pain bearer of Ilmater, and he sees something happen where he could take the pain of someone else, but he decides not to out of fear or something else, that would lead to a crisis of faith. It doesn't have to be lust that causes it, and in general, I would recommend against adding that to a game because it gets really dark really quick. But any one of the tenets of the religion that something causes him to break from it, or even just question if it's valid, to someone that is totally devoted to a belief structure, for them even just to question it is enough to cause a crisis of faith that will cause that person to go on a downward spiral to the point where you have to stop them. Something I say in my training a lot, the why is more important than the what. Why he does the bad things is more important than what he's doing. And you don't have to have him a monologue to the characters for them to discover that. You can put bits of it here or and there. In the middle of a fight when he's confronting the heroes, you can just have him say, "How dare you speak to me like that? Do you know who you're speaking to? I am this. I'm better than you." That lays the groundwork. Later on, he can say, "I would never do this particular thing that's making him have his crisis of faith. Look at how good I am. I'm incapable of doing that." The denial fueling the idea that that's exactly what he's doing. And then he just continues his downward spiral. "No, I never did this, and I'll prove to you that I didn't do that by doing this other thing that is really, really bad, but it proves that I didn't do that thing." And it just goes and goes and goes from there. So, Claude Frollo, really brilliantly written villain. Person with a lot of good personality traits that have been dialed up to 11 and perverted because of that, is put in a position of power and then has a crisis of faith, and his solution to his crisis of faith is to take out the people that caused him to have the crisis of faith. It's a brilliant plot structure for a really engaging story, and as the players start adding their own story to it, you can make it even more meaningful. Connect it to the players, make it a relative of the players that caused the baddie to have his good crisis of faith, or even better, one of their friends or colleagues becomes a casualty of the big baddie's overreaction. You know, all of these things make for really great, interesting villain. Remember always, villains are not the bad guys in their stories. It's everybody else. And as long as you hold on to that, your villains are going to be epic. And everyone will be overjoyed when the heroes triumph over them. That's all for me today. As always, if you like what I'm doing, feel free to hit the subscribe button. I've got a Patreon link if you really want to do that. However, what I do need from you guys is in the comments below, what are some other villains you would like to see me break apart so you can create a version of them for your players to take out? You know, what are the villains that you truly hate and would like to see them get taken down by your players? Or if you are a player, what's a villain you'd like to see one of your characters take out themselves? Other than that, again, that's all for me. Also in the comments, if you have ideas about this, feel free to put them down there. Have a discussion with everyone else about this particular villain. Like I said, I think this is one of the better written villains Disney has created, and I believe he's topped a bunch of lists as just worst Disney villains, most evil Disney villains. So yeah. Anyway, that really is all for me, and I will see you guys in the next time. All right? Bye-bye.